was a day like any other day. Today we're walking through a fictional, but sadly all too realistic day in the accounts payable section of the accounting department. A day where chaos reigned, but by sticking to best practices, some semblance of order was maintained. Let's break it down incident by incident so you can effectively manage similar scenarios, which regrettably are all too commonplace. Now back to our story. The sun is shining and the daffodils are starting to peek out, signaling the end of a particularly bitter winter. You've snagged the last croissant at the coffee shop, and that report your boss wants at the end of the day needs only one more set of numbers. It should take you no more than 30 minutes to finish it off. You might even get 10 minutes to enjoy your coffee and croissant before the day starts. So you're feeling pretty good about the day's prospects as you get off the elevator, only to spot lonesome Louie pacing in front of your office with a determined, angry look on your face. And yes, I know you shouldn't be calling people things like lonesome Louie. Louis is the company's top salesperson and also a royal pain when it comes to his expense reports. The only time they are turned in on time is when they're loaded with reimbursement requests that are not allowed by the company's travel policy. And he takes it as a personal affront when this is pointed out. We need to talk right now, he demands as you approach. You notice that Catherine, your best supervisor, the one who gets along with everyone and has that unusual knack for calming down the most irate suppliers, is also waiting. She takes one look at Louis and says, I can come back if you have a few minutes, but I'd like to talk to you today. You look longingly at your croissant and coffee and hope you can deal with the imminent outburst quickly. Lucky you. Today, not only is Louis' report late, but his credit card bill is due tomorrow, and your processor has just told him that $250 of his expenses are not going to be reimbursed because they're not allowed under the company policy. You've been through this with him numerous times already, so he should know better. But of course he doesn't. After 15 minutes, he leaves furious, and you're not feeling as calm as you were when you first stepped off that elevator. But it's only a little after 9, so you're still optimistic. What you did wrong. Referring to your top salesperson as loathsome Louie, even if it's only in your mind, is probably not a good idea. It sends the wrong message. But hey, I get it. And you know what they say about people in glass houses, so I won't criticize too much at this point. What you did right. Letting him speak his mind for a limited amount of time, but sticking to the policy and backing your staff member should earn you a gold medal on this one. If you're thinking that the day can only get better from this point, you are about to be sorely disappointed. You take the first bite out of your croissant, thinking the worst of the day is over, but you have no idea how wrong you are on that front. And then the phone stops ringing. You're tempted to let it go to voicemail until you see the caller ID and see that it's the controller, your boss. So you answer it. She tells you that she's had a call from the president's office because one of the key suppliers hasn't been paid for 60 days, and they've called the president's office to complain and threaten to put the organization on credit hold. The president has said she doesn't care whose fault it is, just fix it. You quickly log into the system and see the supplier hasn't been paid, but they also haven't responded to 3 phone calls and 2 emails from the processor asking about freight charges the supplier has incorrectly included on the invoice. The processor responsible for that account is Sarah, one of your most productive and responsible processors. You share this with the controller and both agree that you'll pay all invoices, deducting that incorrect freight charge. However, since they are currently receiving check payments, you need to get their ACH information to make the payment. You'd head out to the processor responsible for the account to discuss the matter, only to discover that her cubicle is empty. She reports to Daniel, who is everything that Catherine is not. He argues with everyone and has the uncanny knack of turning the most mundane tasks into giant problems. If Catherine were the supervisor, you would just turn the whole mess over to her and not give it a second's thought. But it's Daniel, so you decide to handle it yourself if Sarah isn't coming in. The fallout from Daniel explaining to the supplier's president what was wrong with her organization and how she should fix it is more than you want to deal with. So you head over to Daniel, and he informs you that Sarah has had an accident and has broken her arm, and expects to be out for at least a week. He then launches into a litany of complaints of how this will make his job much harder and he will likely need more help. You get away as quickly as you can and head back to the office. You call the number that the controller gave you for the supplier's president, apologizing for the misunderstanding, even though you're seething inside because it's not really your organization's fault. You just have to fix it. And explain that if she gets you their ACH information within the next 90 minutes, you will be able to get the money into their account by close of business. She assures you that their treasurer will get you that information within the time frame you need. And sure enough, 85 minutes later, the treasurer calls you with the information. In that time frame, in that 85 minutes, you manage to get in one more bite of the croissant, answer a few pressing emails, and settle another dispute between two staffers over the holiday schedule. Once you have that information, that ACH information, you head over to the master vendor file person with the information. She reminds you that the ACH information has to be verified through a return phone call, and that typically takes a day or two. You give her the Cliff Notes version of what happened, tell her the verification will not be necessary, and eventually you convince her to enter the data so the payment can be made today. A grumbling stomach and a glance at your wristwatch tells you it is already approaching 1 p.m. You race back to Daniel with teeth gritted and tell him to enter the payment information. He's sitting at the desk, eating a sandwich, playing solitaire on his computer. Not a great look for a supervisor, but you decide you'll address it later, and after all, it is his lunch hour. He starts to explain that he's on lunch break and he'll put in the invoice for payment in tomorrow's payment run. During your best to rein in your annoyance, you explain that this is an emergency and the president of the company wants the payment made now. But you'd be happy to call and let the president know that Daniel thinks he knows better. He acquiesces, giving you a dirty look, and enters the invoice and approves the payment, sets it up for payment. You log into your computer and release the payment. Then you send a quick email to the supplier's president and the controller explaining that the payment has been made. You include the invoice number, the dollar amounts, and the deductions for the unauthorized charges. Have you ever had a Daniel in your department? Hit the like button if you have. We're barely halfway through the day, and the day is already a mess. What you did wrong. Number one, the situation with the uncooperative supervisor should never have been allowed to deteriorate to the point where he could not be relied on to deal with critical suppliers, and the manager had to take over. Number two, there should have been some communication with purchasing regarding the inclusion of the freight charges and the non-response from a critical vendor. Some attempts should have been made to rectify it before it reached the level of a phone call to the president. And number three, not verifying that ACH information before making the payment was a mistake, even though you were under pressure to get it out in time. If the treasurer had given you a transposition in the data, you'd now have another mess to deal with the next day. What you did right. Just about everything else. This manager deserves a gold star for recognizing that allowing the temperamental supervisor to handle the situation would have only made the matter worse. Making the payment via ACH was also a good move. Mistakenly thinking now that the worst of the day is behind you, you're about to grab your wallet and head down to get a sandwich when you remember Kath. Maybe she hasn't eaten, and you could grab a bite together, discussing whatever issue she had. But then you realize this will only give Daniel one more reason to complain. He watches everything like a hawk and will complain that Catherine is getting preferential treatment because you never eat lunch with him. And he's right, you never eat lunch with him. So the wallet goes back in your desk and you go out to see if you can resolve Catherine's issue quickly. When she sees you approaching, she asks if she can chat in your office. This doesn't sound good, but you agree. I mean, what choice do you have? You grab a cup of coffee from the break room, as does Catherine. She follows you into your office and closes the door behind her. Your heart sinks. The long and the short of the matter is she's giving notice. She's received a job offer that is both a promotion and a significant pay raise. When you ask her why, she states the obvious pay increase. But when pressed, she shares that Daniel has been telling everyone that he's up for a promotion and other supervisors will report directly to him. She says he's a bully and makes the work environment unpleasant. You cannot convince her otherwise regarding the promotion. And then, of course, there is the money issue. You thank her for her honesty and hard work and wish her the very best. When she leaves, you open the file that you've been keeping on your computer about Daniel and add the announcement to the staff about his supposed promotion to your list of complaints. What you did wrong. Allowing the situation with Daniel to get where it is. It should have been addressed months ago. What you did right. Basically everything else. Have you ever had a Louis or a Daniel in your workplace? Tell us your worst AP horror story in the comments, and maybe we'll be able to use it to turn into a future video. You now dash off two quick emails. The first to HR to set up an appointment to discuss your options with Daniel, and the second to your boss to share the news of Catherine's leaving. It's now almost 2 p.m. You haven't eaten lunch, but you have no appetite anymore. You look at that barely eaten croissant and decide that's what you'll have for lunch, as you still have that special report to finish. Just as you were about to open the email that Catherine sent at 8:30 in the morning with your missing notices, you notice she's back at the door, bringing with her one of her direct reports, Michael. He does much of the analytical work for the department. In your heart, you know they are not here because Catherine has changed her mind about leaving. You wave them in and Catherine explains what's going on. In doing statement reviews, Michael has discovered that you have been double paying one mid-sized supplier for a few months. The supplier has not been issuing credits, and in fact, there have never been any credits issued on the estate. Upon investigating, he discovered the supplier has been sending a second copy of the invoice the day before the due date with a different invoice number on that second copy. Catherine wants to know if you want them to contact the supplier and try and resolve that matter, or you want to take it on yourself or kick it up a level. You tell them to try and handle it diplomatically, and if anything appears to go awry, to get you involved immediately. You also tell them to alert the purchasing professional who handles the account. Michael suggests that they talk to the processor to make sure the credits are issued and taken against the next invoices. Finally, you think to yourself, something has gone right. You also make a mental note to talk to Catherine about Michael. Maybe he would make a good replacement for her. In fact, you intend to ask her if she has any recommendations for her replacements. Of course, you'll do this after you finish that report your boss wants. What you did wrong? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. What you did right? Everything. You turn back to your email, searching for the one Catherine sent with those numbers you need for your report. You find it, and then you open the Excel file that you've been working on, where you just need to drop the numbers in for your final analysis when you see Daniel standing at your door. You're sure he wants to talk about Catherine leaving and what his new role will be, and you have neither the time nor the stamina to deal with it today. Not now, you tell him, but he insists. This can't wait. Okay, you explode. You have 30 seconds to explain what's so important that it can't wait. He looks sheepish for a minute and then says, I think we paid a crook instead of our second largest supplier last week. You realize that the report will have to wait, and you wave him in and tell him to close the door. He shares that near as he can tell, a criminal impersonated the email address of their supplier and sent a change of bank account email for their ACH payment. When you ask how this could have happened because you have a double verification process in place, he starts to squirm. Eventually, you get it out of him. The crook impersonating the supplier had called hysterical before the payments were to be sent to the bank. The supplier had been paid late for the last few invoices, and they were threatening to call the president. Those late payments had probably been your organization's fault. We read that to mean they probably been Daniel's fault, but you can address that later. It was also month end, and if the payments didn't go out in this run, they wouldn't go out for a few days, which would mean the supplier would call and complain. So Daniel had told the master vendor file person to put it through with just one verification. You're pretty sure that when you check this out, the vendor file person is going to tell you that Daniel told her he did the second verification. But again, that's a problem for a later time, not now. You know, two things need to be done. You pick up the phone and call the bank, explain what happened, and ask if they can recall the payment. You realize that given the time span, it is highly unlikely, but you have to try. Then you dial a second call and you call your boss. Daniel tries to leave when you start dialing the second call, but you tell him to sit down and you put the call on the speakerphone. As you might imagine, your boss is not happy. She questions Daniel about what happened, and sadly, you were right in all your suppositions. Reluctantly, Daniel shares the email with the original request with both you and your boss, and upon close examination, it is clear it was not from the company, but it took close examination to figure that out. Unless the bank is able to get the money back, it looks like your company will be out the money. Your boss is furious as he now has to go and explain what happened to the CFO, and he's going to have to ask the CFO to authorize that second payment to replace the money that was sent to the criminal instead of the legitimate supplier. He also instructs you, not Daniel, to call the supplier and explain what happened and ask for their understanding in another day's delay in their payment. Daniel looks so miserable, you almost feel sorry for him. Almost. You promise to update everyone once the bank calls back. You can't believe it, but the day is almost gone, and you still haven't done the report your boss is expecting by close of business, and of course you have to call the supplier. What you did wrong, not reining in Daniel sooner, and what you did right, everything else. As the phone rings yet again and you reach for it, you realize that you're not going to be able to leave tonight on time again. You hope that the call is not about another mistake. Recognizing that avoiding mistakes is a crucial component of an efficient and effective accounts payable function goes a long way to avoiding days like this. Click on the link that has appeared on your YouTube screen and is in the description for insights on how you can do just that.